Welcome to the Color Commutes. This is the October 1st edition. This is just 2 days since the previous Color Commute. Our colors are starting to speed up a bit, so we need to show the progression. We need to do this a little bit more frequently. Hopefully I'll be able to keep up. We speed up as we get into some of the more evergreen trees here. Kind of cuts down on the color a bit. It'll look really great once we get a lot more of the trees turning. And we can just kind of get through some of this. But you can still see off to the right a fair amount of yellows and some oranges starting to take effect. But it really shows up here as we go down through this section. We begin to exit the bottom of the hill here, and we're getting into much more of a mix of the deciduous and evergreen trees. So there's not a lot of color here as we get down along towards Old 27. And the same can be said for going up Old 27 up until we get to the state park. It's still pretty kind of bland with a few deciduous trees in there. Not a lot of color so far. As we approach the state park, we're starting to see more deciduous trees on both sides, and you can see that some of the trees are starting to turn a little bit more yellow, and there's a bit of orange and maybe some red from time to time. But for the most part, a lot of these trees in here will tend to start going more yellow here at the beginning. One thing to note, on the right-hand side, you start to notice some of the ferns and some of the other smaller shrubs are starting to turn as well. The ferns actually probably are more brown than anything else, but for the most part there are sections where some of the smaller shrubs are beginning to turn colors. As we pass Charles Brink Road and the ridge, we start to notice that the color suddenly is gone for the most part. There are a few individual trees that are beginning to turn in this section, but for the most part the deciduous trees are relatively green, and there is a mix of evergreens in this section as well. As we get ready to cross I-75, we start to see a little bit more color again, as we approach the south end of town. Crossing the bridge, you can see a lot of the color off to the left with the previous set of trees and now the trees here at some of the hotels. As we continue on, we'll speed up a bit as we go through part of the south end of town where the trees are kind of cut back a bit, but then you can start to see up by Mega Power Sports that there are more trees that are starting to turn. It almost looks as plentiful color-wise as it did along West M32 the other day. As we pass McCoy Road, we look off to the left at the Ford dealership and off to the right across the road, and we see a bit more color as well. Town isn't looking too badly as far as the color is concerned. Of course, once you get past these sections here, then it becomes somewhat treeless to a certain extent, or a lot of evergreen trees. Thanks for watching, and get ready for another one in a couple of days.